Senior Assistant Director of Medical Services in the Government of Kenya, Consultant General Surgeon and Urologist here in Kenya. I am the Head of Surgery at Kiambu Level 5 Hospital and the Program Director of the COSEXA program, which is the College of East and Central African Surgeons based at Kiambu. I am also the lecturer at KU, that is a medical school, and the founder of MESU Center, which is the Medical Surgery and Urology Center here at West Park Suites. I am a private doctor practicing in Kenya, especially here in Nairobi, and very much passionate about community service. It's a common question that I come across. A lot of young people actually ask about whether you had at risk of getting UTIs and STIs. First of all, it's good to distinguish. We have UTIs, which are called urinary tract infections, and we have STIs or STDs, which are sexually transmitted diseases. These two are different, but sometimes they are used interchangeably by people because of misinformation. Now, theoretically, it is possible to contract any of these diseases because a disease is basically a condition that is transmitted from one person to another through an infective agent. Now, most of the infective agents will either be maybe bacteria, there will be some parasites, there will be fungus, there will be viruses. For any of this to be transmitted, it has to be the organism, which is the germ, has been transferred from one individual who is infected to another one. Highly unlikely, okay? Because a UTI requires an organism to enter into the urinary tract of an individual. Now, this is only possible through either contamination, something coming in through the blood, or something coming in from outside by direct contact. Swimsuits will have direct contact, but they are not infected with organisms unless somebody has shared and they basically had some contamination through organisms that came from the neighborhood. The most common cause of a UTI would be maybe in young ladies because of the arrangement of the urinary tract. So if you have an organism coming from the anal area, maybe there's some contamination on the costume. Now, it is possible that you can have some contamination by bacteria from the gastrointestinal tract, that is in feces. So it is possible, yes, theoretically, that somebody who puts on a swimsuit, then you have those organisms being transmitted through the opening into a female. In a male, it's not going to happen because they have a longer tract. For the STIs, it's even more difficult to get it through sharing of swimsuits. But what happens is occasionally if somebody has a discharge, and also you're talking about mostly females, a young girl who does not have very good hygiene, she has contaminated her swimsuit, it has not been well washed, and then somebody else shares it. Then that contact, if at all the organism is still fresh, it is possible because they can survive outside for a small period of time. However, they need a host, a person who is going to be the person where this bacteria is going to thrive in, because these are living organisms. They cannot survive outside for a long period of time. So theoretically, yes, it's possible that somebody who has shed some bacteria and that bacteria, or rather that swimsuit is still moist and somebody else shares it immediately, they are able to theoretically acquire that infection. The most common things which somebody is going to get is irritation, because the organism might already be dead, but because there are chemicals which have been secreted with the organism, then that contact with the area of the genitals in a young female might actually end up causing some irritation. So the person may end up itching, they might end up getting some problems when they are passing urine, but typically not an infection, just some contamination in the area of the genitals. So yes, while people will say you are going to get STIs from sharing or swimming costumes, highly unlikely, but theoretically, yes, it is possible. Salty water has traditionally been used as a cure for so many ailments that human beings have been having. That is a fact that is borne by history and our ancestors. If you came from the areas where most people came from, your parents would be able to use warm salty water to take care of wounds. Okay. Now, the body's normal mechanism of taking care of bacteria is a salty environment. Now, so it is true, a lot of organisms that would be surviving in your body will not be able to tolerate a salty environment because they die. So yes, salty water does have some effect in preventing against infections. Bear in mind also that for organisms to be transmitted from one person to another, they need a good environment, which is body fluids, to be able to move from one person to another. Environment of the ocean or the salty water will help in eradicating the levels of the contamination on that swimming costume. So, but what happens now afterwards is you have this cloth drying on an individual. Now, there are other chemicals which are contained in the water apart from the salt. So while you might be safe from the contamination due to bacteria, then the other contaminants in the water, you're not so sure. So what you say is, the more you stay with a wet cloth on your body, the higher the chances of getting complications. Because that contact with something which is moist and wet for a prolonged period of time will cause irritation of the skin. Normal, clean soapy water. Okay, soap is a good enough detergent to get rid of most of the contaminants, because as I said earlier on, it's more or less like sterile. Okay, having come from not a swimming pool, having come from an ocean with salty water, it's generally free of organisms. But what you want is to get rid of other contaminants, which might not necessarily be effective. So running water, soapy water, the way you normally clean your clothes will suffice. You don't need any special treatment to take care of this minor condition. The ideal situation in this world is not always practical. Okay, everybody would like to have a car. Okay, but the reality is we'll have to keep on hiring cars. Everybody would like to own a house. We'll have to keep on hiring houses. Everybody would like to have a swimming costume, but the reality on the ground is we'll have to keep on hiring. So we have to do things which are practical within our context, but be safe.